I'm not going to tell you a word of a lie, but I've been pretty much obsessed over stencils at the moment. And I've actually gotten together quite a few different materials that you can use for stencils. And I'm going to show you just how to make them in Cricut Design Space. My name is Kelly, and let's get clacking. Starting off with making a stencil, we're going to need to choose an item or a pattern that we can use to repeat in within a block. I want to make a stencil that has little feet on it because I want to use it for icing sugar over some brownies. Yes, I know, that's a pretty cool use of stencils, right? So I'm going to go to the images panel. I'm going to search for baby feet, as I'm specifically looking for baby feet. Now, when it comes to picking an image for your stencil, you don't want to pick something that is going to be crazy small, as you may lose quite a bit of detail. So I'm going to choose one of these, knowing that I'm more than likely going to be losing the toes. And I'm going to then add that one to the canvas. Now, of course, this is miles too big for what I want, so I'm going to make it quite a bit smaller. I don't need it to be too small, so I'm going to make it about 3 centimeters or so. Now, what I typically do in this case is I duplicate it, and I try and figure out roughly how wide I want the stencil to be. In this case, it is going to be quite a wide stencil, so I want to use up pretty much the whole space of the mat. And I'm actually going to delete these unnecessary layers that I see on the side here. So I'm going to duplicate this, maybe space them out a little bit more as I want the feet to be a little bit defined. So 16 centimeters is good. Now you'll notice that these are not aligned in any way, shape or form. And that's where I use all of the align features. So you can use the align, and first of all I like to distribute horizontally so there's an even spacing in between each of them. Then what I like to do is I like to align it center vertically. If we align it center horizontally, they're all going to go on top of each other, so we don't want to do that. And from here I go and duplicate. So let's have another row, and I just want to do 3 rows on this one. I'm going to group each of these rows together. So I'm pressing Control and G. And what I'm then going to do is I'm going to highlight all 3 of the groups, and I'm going to align them center horizontally so that they all line up. Or what you could do is you could have them aligned horizontally and then move one out so that it's a little bit haphazard. And I think I'm going to do that. Now what I need to do is I need to weld all of these together because I need them in the same layer in order to go to the next step. So the next step is to create the border around your stencil. And this is quite simple. You just go to the shapes feature, you open up a square, unlock the aspect ratio, send it to the back, and you just make it bigger. And now you want to make sure there's enough space overlapping the top and bottom for whatever use you want it to be. If you don't need it to have a big overlap, then you don't have to. Like I mentioned before, I want to use it on brownies with icing sugar. So I need to have a little bit of room on either side so that you don't get icing sugar on the sides. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. There we go. And now we select those 2, and now we slice. Now the gray layer will be our stencil, and then these 2 layers you can either delete them or you can just hide them. It's up to you. I'm going to delete the gray layer and I'm just going to hide that layer. So I like to keep both of them. So that's how you've created your own stencil design. Quite as easy as that. And now we're going to send it to cut. Now, some of the options that we have here in terms of materials are, probably at the bottom of the list is the Bantex file dividers. Now these are obviously plastic that you can very easily cut on your Cricut. It's a very soft plastic. You shouldn't have very much problem cutting these at all. And I'm going to use this in today's example as it's probably a stencil that I'm not going to use again, or I'm going to give it to somebody else that might use stencils a little bit more often than me, because I'm pretty sure that I won't be using this again. And I got these from P&A. I think they were under 50 Rand, and there's 10 of them, so it works out to around 5 Rand a page, which is pretty cheap. Budgeting on 50 Rand, because I can't remember exactly what they were. I'm pretty sure they were cheaper. Then we have this one, and this one is something that I teased in a more recent video. If you want to check that video out, I will leave it up at the top. It is Cricut business ideas or product ideas. Now, this is essentially PVC laminate, and it is A3, and I think it was 10 Rand. So it's pretty cheap for a total. Again, it also works out to around 5 Rand per A4. and it cuts beautifully and it works really nice for a stencil that you want to clearly see what is going on underneath. Next up we have an A4 frosted cover. Now I'm not sure exactly what type of material this is. It is slightly thicker than the one that we just went over, and it is a nice bridge between this and Mylar. Mylar we'll get to in a moment. Now this was R6 a page, so obviously it's slightly more expensive, but I mean, let's face it, R6 is not very much. And it gives you the nice frosted look. So if you don't really need to see what is underneath, but you want a slightly sturdier stencil, then this is a great option. And last but most certainly not least, we have Mylar. Mylar is probably one of the most popular materials that people use when it comes to stencils. I'm not sure on the exact price of Mylar. I will find a price for you and I will put it here. But this is a relatively thick material. It's very similar in thickness to this one, but it is slightly sturdier. So if you want a slightly sturdier material that probably can handle a little bit more detail, then Mylar is a great option. But if you're in a bind, then some of those other ones are far more readily available, as I got all three of those at P&A. And Mylar, you typically have to go to places like Maisie's Plastics to get it. And they're very often out of stock. So it's not always the most reliable option, which is why I wanted to show you some alternatives. There are, of course, also Cricut brand acetates that I don't yet have. I have ordered them. They are on the way. Hold thumbs or cross fingers or whatever. And I really hope to have those very soon. So let me know in the comments if you want me to do a video review on those products, as I think they're very cute. They bring something different to the market. One of them is foil and it has lots of little hearts and funny shapes on it, so I'd like to show you guys that a little bit. But like I mentioned, we're going to be using the file dividers in today's video, as I've been dying to try these out and see how they hold up on the Cricut as well as a stencil. So I'm going to use my standard grip mat and I'm going to cut it on the acetate setting, as that's what worked perfectly with the clear PVC sheets. So we go to the Make It panel. I'm going to be cutting this on a mat, definitely. And I'm going to then continue. I've even starred the acetate, as that's how much I love it. And I'm going to be using that setting. So let's load it up, cut it, see what happens. So we're all done with that. We had a 1 foot that we lost and a little edge there that didn't quite want to stick down, but that's fine. Ooh. Perfect cut. Probably was a little bit of an overkill cut, but I mean, even the toes remained, which is quite impressive. So we've got some great detail on this, and this is going to look so cute. If you want to know how to get the most out of your Cricut cut settings, you can watch this video, and below it is a playlist of some other videos that you might enjoy. Subscribe to my channel for more videos in the future, and remember, be kind to someone today. See you soon!